Today is June 29th, 2025. Vitamin K2, just kind of a live series I put on. My name's Kourosh Khoylou, K2. So I'm just going to go and just read through some stories here, headline articles. All right, Palm Beach Post. This is about HOAs. Owner unable to lease out unit when HOA caps renters in community to 1 in 5 homes. Is that legal? Question: I own a townhouse in a community governed by an HOA. Our association restricted rentals in 2017, a year after I moved in, by limiting the number of renters to a maximum of 20%. I've been wanting to rent out my unit for years, but the board has rejected any attempt, even refusing to add me to the waiting list. To comply with FHA mortgage guidelines, our bylaws state that anyone purchasing a home in the community must put at least 20% down, which doesn't mesh well with the typical 3.5% on FHAs. Is there any hope? And then this is the response. Quote, I'm not a big fan of rental caps. While the FHA concerns are legitimate, there are so many other restrictions that can trip up FHA approval that I don't find them to be particularly effective. Plus, they are very difficult to police and manage. When I draft rental cap restrictions, I include very complicated language that details exactly how they are going to be enforced, who has leasing priority, how you get on the wait list once your turn comes, how long you have to find a tenant before they move on to the next person on the list, etc. Unquote. And then I'm just going to read. Rental cap language would have needed to be added to your declaration of covenants. I doubt that the board created rental cap rule would survive muster. If the rental cap was a proper amendment, I don't think there's a lot you can do other than challenge the board's procedure for managing the cap. So it's really important, these governance laws. In Zayuk Safe, we we place governance as a primary feature. That means your rules, that means the integration of the rules across the tickets like this one, which would be challenging your board procedure or a violation or a delinquency or a dispute resolution, um, and creating a digital thread that includes governance, because that is a piece that a lot of people don't understand. Is like, when you purchase in an HOA, you're purchasing within a set of rules uh, as an owner that you must abide by, and especially if you live there, there are rules as well that the residents or your renters will need to abide by. Um, I'm not going to read that. All right, let's continue on to something else. Homeowners floored after HOA blunder leaves them on the hook for $50,000 each. All right. Homeowners filed floored after. All right, I just read that. An alarmed Texas homeowner has alleged that their homeowner association has been overcharging residents for water. Then this is on our HOA subreddit. I should just go into that. That's probably a lot more cringe than just keeping it to headline articles of main publishers. The costly error to expose. All right, the frustrated homeowner took to the HOA subreddit to expose the $52,000 worth of bills they were charged over several years. The costly error has left residents with a frustrating battle for reimbursement. Detailed this concern about HOA management and utility billing practices. Can be frustrating. After their HOA transitioned from a developer-controlled board to an elected resident board, the original poster noticed inconsistencies in water meter billing. Meters were being charged with commercial and residential rates. Another strange fact was that all rates were for irrigation only. This has been ongoing for since 2022. They contacted the city for confirmation. Authorities agreed that meters should have been on the lower non-tiered commercial rate. The homeowner and their management company calculated the excess total to be a whopping $52,000. City offered a $500 credit, citing city ordinance. This undisclosed regulation limits the credits for billing disputes only up to 6 months. This sounds criminal, the distressed homeowner stated. I'm annoyed. All right. Da 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 da. I mean, this is a huge deal. This incident underscores the issue of HOA oversight or lack thereof. And I think, this comes into a bigger issue, which I'm going to bring into my book, Decentralized Asset Ownership, is, ownership. What do I own? What am I paying? Um, why am I paying it? And when you get into things like, so I can explain it also in terms of AI too, because AI needs organized data. You can't just give it these blobs of garbage and just hope it sifts through it. You need to give it a context that is proper, which is where blockchains and decentralized ledgers come in, because even more so than the human being, you want the artificial intelligence to be able to iterate through a blockchain system, through a decentralized ledger system, and understand the context of which the work, if it's an agent, needs to be done, the question or answer or back and forth if it's a chatbot, and who knows whatever else comes. Um, but these two systems are really coming together, blockchain and AI, and it's really interesting the contexts that they bring together. And even, on Zayik, we keep a centralized ledger, and our new version of the centralized ledger, which is going to come out in the next couple of months, is really awesome. And as someone who's been really interested in supply chain management, supply chain decentralized ledgers, um, it's really cool to see it come to fruition, and to see, because one thing is, Jeff Bezos, he speaks about, working from the customer backwards. And in blockchain, a lot of what blockchain has been about is working, at least for me, and not just blockchain, but for me as a product creator, is working from the back end to the customer, and that's completely the wrong way to go about it. And just it's maybe it can be done, but there's so much room for error, and you don't understand the problems that need to be solved. And so it's really important to go from the customer backwards. But when you do go backwards, and when you do reach a point where you're like, oh, okay, um, it's really interesting. But the point I bring this up is that it's really important to understand what's been going on. It's really important to understand, um, you know, how the utility gets charged to the HOA and then to the resident from there, and having an organized set of reference is important, because the disorganized sets of references that we're asking AI to make decisions on is just bad. Be garbage in, garbage out. So if you give an AI way too much information, you know, it's definitely not going to work. So if you give it a proper context, which I think is what a lot of people are going to be working on, what Zayuk works on, is bringing an appropriate context to the AI, you know, that allows the decision making to be better. And of course, there's going to be levels of that decision making which is held at the creators of the model, whether that's Gemini or OpenAI or Claude or Amazon, whatever. And that, to be honest, has been progressing pretty rapidly. And I was just speaking to some people yesterday about coding, and I mean, 95 plus percent of code that I work with is not written by me. It is mostly um, design, architecture, and letting the AI and the system build the engineering portions of it. And you actually do have to go in and engineer some things at the end. But I would say a lot of it is, you know, why I say 95%, because you prompt the AI to do something, it produces 100% of the work that's been done. And you might like add some things, you might move some things around, you might delete some things, but the code that hits, you know, to be honest, it's you know, the bits that hit that silicon, but the code that hits that file are almost completely generated by artificial intelligence. Uh, and I think Alexander Wang spoke about the garbage in it, and there is garbage, and we have to work to eliminate that garbage. But it's pretty incredible. So 95 plus percent of code that I work with is not generated by a human, which is why SaaS companies and the price of software is going to plummet. Like, I mean, straight go down. The idea of paying thousands of dollars for software that isn't artificial intelligence based, and the reason I'll get why artificial intelligence based software is not going to be the same price, but just like a static software, I mean, it should all just plummet because the cost of maintenance, the cost of the work to create the software has just plummeted. And so the first companies that we should see uh, get really affected, and one is Chegg, which is probably the biggest company that I know of that's been affected by AI. Google search kind of ate itself. I mean, Google search has obviously been affected by AI, but Google, you know, probably by ChatGPT, probably by Claude, probably by some other items that I don't work with. But at the end of the day, it's still Google's still doing very well, and they have so many other features. I'm sorry, so many other products like Gmail, Workspace, Android, Chrome, and you know, particularly Chrome, their web-based suite. I mean, they can, and of course, you know, their native or mobile-based suite. Um, they can just integrate AI features within that. So even if people don't necessarily use Gemini, they still have so many of these other products that are really well priced relatively. I mean, you know, Google Cloud can be pretty expensive, and sometimes something happens where it's just like, whoa, which I really don't feel in AWS. Because when I say whoa, I mean a price comes back and you're just like, why am I being charged this? And then you're like, this costs this much? What in the world? And I've never really had that with AWS, but their non-cloud based suite, when I talk about, you know, Gmail, Google Workspace, Chrome, These are all free softwares, and the fact that they're able to integrate AI into them is really powerful. And so they're still able to take advantage. So I don't think we've really seen AI eat software companies, but that is what's likely going to happen is like in the next 5 to 10 years, the companies that should be most affected are the existing software companies that like these SaaS companies that offer these one features, this very specific set of features. Like I think we're going to be able to see verticals pop up that are way more integrated, which is what Zayuk does with property management. And when I say that, like our e-signature platform, we have an e-signature platform to that is based in a contract management system. So you can sign your contracts on Zayuk. You can manage your contracts on Zayuk. You can get verification on the work that you're paying for on Zayuk. And associations do that. And it's a very powerful system. And again, 95% of the code is written by AI. A lot of it is maintained by AI. And so, how do you proceed in a world like that? Well, a lot of what people are talking about, especially as far as property management goes, is, um, and as far as software, I'm not really talking about the actual um, job, but software companies, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough in the future. And because people are going to be able to create their own software like it's nothing. It's so interesting. You're going to be able to do these things. I mean, personally, I still use very hardcore like software, and I think even when we talk about other things outside of software, which we can speak about, but we'll just continue here. So $50,000. Yes, that's a long run. 2 or 3 years. You got to stay vigilant. It's really important. Don't take it as a joke. I mean, people want to invest in real estate. There are certain rules, and people. This is the crazy thing, and I understand it completely. You purchase a home for like, you know, who knows what you put down. Let's say you put $60,000 down, and you pay like you know, $4,000 mortgage a month. Um, that's a huge cost, and the details of ownership are important to understand. And that's one thing that I think people should strive for. We talk about a renting culture or ownership culture. You want to own something, whether it's a stock, whether it's real estate. If you're not confident in your abilities in stocks, which, you know, stocks is like, I'm not going to go into it, but if you're not confident in owning and managing portions of companies, real estate is safe. It's very safe to a certain degree. Of course, there are unsafe aspects to it, and we're seeing that right now with the huge drop in market value in different locations around the U.S., like Texas and Florida. And, Florida is a bit unique with their insurance market, um, but California here, it was safe. Granted, it's very high pricing, but that's also, you kind of have to understand the dynamics of economy, the dynamics of real estate economy. And it's important, when you get a real estate agent, to not just talk about the aesthetics of the home. It's not just about the aesthetics of the home. Yes, it's very important the way your home feels and the way your home makes you feel and the surroundings around that home. But you have financial constraints everyone has financial constraints unless you're a billionaire, in which case you still do, but just much, you know, more liberal constraints. And it's important to respect those constraints because if you don't, it will be very difficult to manage them, manage your life, manage your assets, being over leveraged like that. And when I say over leveraged, you can talk about being house poor, where a large portion of your income goes to your mortgage, you know, and then that's one thing. And then if the market also, you purchased the home in a time when the market was inflated and in a market that's inflated, because one interesting thing in 2008, we saw the California market completely crash. And, but right now, one thing that has, really helped California homeowners is the lack of availability in California homes. And so, where other parts of the country, the prices are crashing, here they've actually lowered a little bit, um, but not even close to other parts of the nation. And so, there's an economy towards making a purchase like this. There are certain constraints, values, and issues that you can run into when you make a purchase like this. And when you hire a real estate agent, it should really be as much of an economic decision, like help me purchase something. When you go to a real estate agent, if you don't really know what you're doing, the number one thing is to admit, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. What I don't want to do is um, get myself house poor, put myself in a position where this piece of real estate might lower in value. And luckily, you have AI today. So there are ways to, not use a human, but again, trusted source, person who's going to tell you, like, yeah, you can purchase that house that's, $150,000 over a recommended budget, but, you know, you're going to be struggling. Like, it's going to be tough. You're not going to have certain freedoms. Like, it's nice to have certain freedoms, to have certain ability to, move. But I guess the point I was trying to bring in all this is when you purchase real estate, it's a big deal. And when you purchase in an HOA, you are joining an organization, a nonprofit organization that centers around a particular piece of property. And it is very important to understand the rules and this financial hygiene of that property before making huge purchases. So, all right, let's see. Here's something in Minneapolis. Yeah, I'm actually deviating back to headlines. People in Lakeville Town Home Association are upset about a big bill they got for roofing repairs. Most of them feel they don't need. The $2.5 million project is costing each homeowner more than $17,000. Damage was hard to find, but an insurance adjuster reported some and recommended roof replacement. The contractor went to Gittleman, which is a subsidiary of the property management company's First Service. First Service sent us a late response. The statement didn't address the limited scope of the project but said the contract was chosen by the Homeowners Association board, not by them. So there are multiple things here in the brief of this issue. First of all, Lakeville HOA in Minneapolis, lots of snow in Minnesota. I believe that area is more prone to roofing issues because of snowfall. I live in San Diego. There are parts of San Diego in the mountains inland that do get snow, but not to the level of Minnesota. So, but let's just review this. All right, let's keep on going. questioning damage documented after a July 2023 storm. An insurance adjuster visited Avenalea Townhome Community, reported documented damage to a roof, soft metal, and gutters. Eventually got the report, including 30 photos, all time-stamped within 7 minutes of each other. She looked at her roof and her neighbors and wonders where the adjuster found the problem. The eye test. The development is made of 32 buildings and spans more than a quarter mile. From above, Skyfox drone recorded crews at work replacing but struggled to spot any damage. Residents. So, Skyfox drone. So, they even had a drone come out. I think, so here, let's go to Zayuk Safe. Your property is your property. There is information at your property. That information stays, the truth behind that information stays at the property. But the knowledge of that truth is very often difficult to track. It is difficult to understand the history of what occurred on a property. And this is a huge reason why the system needs to be adjusted, where you keep the information at the property and you have stakeholders come in and out. The information can no longer be managed with an external stakeholder. And that is the biggest thing that Zayuk Safe does for properties. We keep the information at the property because the stakeholder comes in and out, and issues like this, where there's an RFP, a request for proposal, it seems like the person who won the bid, the company that won the bid, was a subsidiary of the property management company. I mean, there's questions about the cost. It has gotten to a point where properties, they can't afford it. They can't afford to be anything but they can't afford to hold the information anywhere but their property. And so we talk about these roofs. Well, Zayuk Safe has a drone inspection service. And even if you use another drone inspection company, as long as they handle the protocols right, they fly that drone correctly, they analyze the building correctly, they get the proper photography of the sides of the buildings, of the top of the building, and all associated property assets, including utilities, trees, pavement, sidewalks, anything, gates, fences, balconies. You then have that record there. And even if the model isn't good, by the way, there's certain aspects to the model that should be met. It's not just about flying a drone over and taking some pictures. You want a very particular enterprise drone that is able to understand the positioning that is taking that photo and every photo, so that a software can go and stitch those photos together and create a 3D model that is accurate to 2 or 3 centimeters. And with that power, the ability to get recommendations on things like your roof, like your property, at a rate that actually makes sense in a time span that is affordable, and with the best availability of possible vendors to you that can actually understand the context of your problem visually, with photos and a highly accurate model to 3 centimeters, it's difficult. It's difficult to get away. It's difficult for any of this to happen because, and then you add a contract ledger on the back of that where, you know, there's an organized history uh, based off of a modern, I don't really like to use it, but a modern way of visualizing the states of the contract, the bidding, the approval of the contract, the work on the contract, the invoicing on the contract. Um, so it's really important. It's really important. And now we're going to move on to the cyber portion. I've kind of been talking about cyber this whole time, but Hawaiian Airlines hit by cyber attack. Hold on. I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to actually get off of Instagram. I don't even think I'm on Instagram, so I'll just make sure. All right, great. Great. So Hawaiian Airlines hit by cyber attack. Hawaiian Airlines said on Thursday that some of its IT systems were disrupted by a hack, adding its flights were operating as scheduled. Some of our IT systems have been affected by a cybersecurity event. Not disclosed information. Ransomware. The language is typically used in cases of ransomware where digital extortionists paralyze a victim's computer network until a cryptocurrency ransom is paid. Airline is owned by Alaska Air Group. I did not know that. Taken steps to safeguard our operations. Reuters could not immediately ascertain the extent of the disruption at Hawaiian, but a representative responded using a Gmail address when contacted to seek further details. The FAA said its safety office responsible for airline oversight is in contact with Hawaiian. All right. ICS, Industrial Control Systems. Let me just do a quick, make sure that give me one moment. I'm just asking a question to AI. Scattered spider. Okay. So it looks like it was just its IT systems, which is different than a lot of other issues when it comes to these large um, machines and specifically industrial control systems. But we're not going to get into that. We're just going to keep it to this. Uh, so let's just keep on. Rampant criminal cyber groups hack successfully breach the computer networks of multiple airlines in the US and Canada. Hasn't affected airline safety, but top cyber executives at major airlines are on alert. Young cyber criminals called Scattered Spider. Aggressive efforts to extort or embarrass their victims. Da, da, da. Third major U.S. business sector in the last 2 months after insurance and retail to face a flurry of cyber attacks tied to the criminal group. I'm going to check out those. The hackers target big companies and their IT contractors, which means anyone in the airline ecosystem, including trusted vendors and contractors, could be at risk. Once inside a victim's network, scattered spider actors steal sensitive data for extortion and often deploy ransomware. Hawaiian Airlines and Canada's WestJet confirmed this week they were still assessing the fallout from recent cyber attacks. WestJet's issues began 2 weeks ago when the airline said it was responding to a cybersecurity incident that was affecting access to some services and software systems, including its app for customers. Both WestJet and Hawaiian Airlines said their operations were unaffected. Lack of impact on operations at the airlines is likely a sign of good internal network separations or good business continuity and resiliency planning. Da, da, da. It's not just the airlines themselves, but other segments of the aviation ecosystem that are seeing increased cyber attacks. Da, da, da. Fine margin for error in the airline industry were displayed Friday when a separate IT outage. Apparently, yes. So there was another IT outage in American Airlines, but it looks like that wasn't Scattered Spider. All right. So they also hit some other, let's see, have mobilized people across the industry to respond. Da, da, da. One of Scattered Spider's preferred methods of infiltrating corporations is calling up help desks and pretending to be employees or customers. Highly effective for hackers to gain access to the networks of big companies. Airlines rely heavily on call centers for their support needs. Scattered Spider gained attention in September 2023 when they were linked to a pair of multi-million-dollar hacks on Las Vegas casinos and hotels, MGM Resorts, and Caesars Entertainment. The hackers tend to pick one sector to target for weeks on end. Earlier this month, they were the suspect in a hack of insurance giant Aflac. So these are the same people that hacked Aflac that potentially stole social security numbers, insurance claims, and health information. All right. U.S. retailers after wreaking havoc in the UK. Cyber attacks on and this was written last month on the 16th, May 16th. Linked to a notorious criminal group have conducted cyber attacks on multiple U.S. retail companies in the last 10 days, aggressively extorting major U.S. corporations. Between ransomware attacks on 3 to 5 U.S. retailers, loose collection of hackers that the cyber industry calls Scattered Spider. The thing about these things is that usually they're networks. They tend not to be a single person. I mean, they can be, but like, it's organized crime for sure. It's really impressive. Really impressive. You know, I think we all are like just the thing about it is once you get deep into like understanding cybersecurity, I mean, there's a couple things. One, you realize almost everyone gets caught unless you're, you know, a, a government hacker, in which case, you know, you have a shield around you. But if you're, you know, just a civilian and in organized, you know, or non-organized cyber crime, the chances of you getting caught are, I mean, super high. That's what I've seen. Or, you know, when you listen to a lot of cyber podcasts and, you know, review cyber history and malware history, you realize like we know like everything. We know like there's a trace for nearly all of it. Nearly everything that's happened, there's a trace for it. Someone can find it. But it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that it's really impressive and that it impresses people. And if you do it, you're smart. You have to be to some degree, maybe I would say smart, but when you get into software, I think I saw a meme. It's like you realize you can hack a lot of things, like even more so than intelligence. What you need is the desire to do it, the desire to actually create malware and do something like this is the larger barrier of entry than intelligence, I would say. And so let's continue. Google urge U.S. retailers to raise their digital defenses. Group is considered dangerous and unpredictable. comprised of youths in the US and UK, especially if you're a youth, like, you know, if you're 16 years old and can hack into Aflac, why wouldn't you? I mean, like, just if you're a teenager at that point, of course you shouldn't, but if you can, you know, it's pretty powerful. And that's what I mean when I say, why wouldn't you? Because it's like, wow, I'm just this 16-year-old in school, maybe spending a lot of time on the computer, and all of a sudden you have access to like a major corporation's private data. And especially if you're 16 or that age, because you don't understand, you probably haven't reviewed a lot of cyber crime history and you're kind of maybe just acting on the cybercrime. But if you don't review the history, you might not realize that the chance of you getting caught is like it's like 100%. Probably less, of course, but it's so high. It's so high. There's so much traceability online. Nothing is private. All right. So, da, da, da. Ahold Delhaize USA was targeted, which has the same parent company as the Giant and Food Lion grocery store chains. Hacker managed to log into an account at one of its US retail locations, but the incident was isolated. So this again goes to a point where it's like, keep your password and your authentication at the hardware layer. I said this last week, but you really want to do it. Keep for the authentication so that you literally need a piece of hardware that only you have. They have to steal your hardware for them to hack you. That's what you want. You want them, I mean, because it's really difficult to get any better than that. But I mean, because they also have to steal your hardware and probably get a biometric on you, whether that's your fingerprint or your face scan, which I'm sure there are ways to do it. Um, versus like, yeah, so passkeys, um, passkeys. All right, let's go. Separate ransom attacks last month on major UK retail giants Harrods and Marks and Spencers. The latter appeared hardest hit, stole customer data, shot to infamy in September 2023. All right, let's go. Aflac. Cyber criminals have breached insurance giant Aflac, potentially stealing social security numbers, insurance claims, and health information, the company said. I believe this was June 20th. So this was like 5 days ago. Sorry, 9 days ago. With billions of dollars in annual revenue and tens of millions of customers, biggest victim yet, U.S. insurance companies. So, I mean, insurance companies are going to need crypto too. I mean, you just need a good crypto. I'm sorry. Like, if Bitcoin, I mean, we saw what happened a few months ago with the horrible, I mean, I don't even really want to repeat it, but it's not, big, crypto right now needs government validation. That's what it needs. Until the government gets much more involved in the regulation, in the insurance, and the validation of who has the money, it's a it's not a great way to handle business. The government needs to get more involved if it really wants it to be uh, implemented properly. It needs insurance. Stable coins need to be FDIC insured, and it needs to be properly regulated. It needs to be properly regulated because there's so much room for fraud. There's so much. I mean, we're seeing it right now. The NFTs, seen, like, there was an NFT that supposedly sold for, I don't know if this is true, but like 69 million in like 2021, and now it's like 100, less than $100. I mean, this is I mean, that's just bad. That's not really what I'm talking about. I'm more so talking about deriving the value of someone's crypto legally. Like, you can't have, it has to be done through the government. The banks need to be involved. Um, it just, we want to see all this change, and there will be change, and the change will happen in the financial sector. Um, but you need the financial sector to come with you. You can't just create your own financial sector, and there's a reason for that. It's because it's very difficult to back. Uh, the U.S. government is backed by real estate. It's backed by a military. It's backed by a you know decently working government and a set of states that have decently working governments that have a set of municipalities that have decently working governments. And so that's what the US dollar is backed by. It's backed by the military, the real estate, the government, and the people who work for it. Um, and the bureaucracies behind those. And until that comes to crypto, which probably won't, I mean, what's going to happen is that the existing bureaucracy is going to, which it's doing, is it going to adopt a system, and that system's going to be a stablecoin system because, I mean, it's the same thing we talked about before that I've spoken about. Bitcoin is doomed to be criminal currency because it does not have an on taxation protocol. It really doesn't make sense if it doesn't have an on taxation protocol. There's no reason. I mean, maybe you can. Maybe I'm missing something, but that's what I feel. That's what my logic brings me to, is that because there is no on taxation protocol, yes, it might work. Yes, it might be immutable. Yes, it might, be the greatest software algorithm ever in terms of people's opinions, but it still seems like it's doomed to be criminal currency. Okay, so Aflac, hackers use social engineering to worm their way into its network. According to Aflac, tactic can involve duping someone into revealing security information to gain access to a network. Loose group of cyber criminals is considered dangerous and unpredictable, in part because it is believed to be compromised of youths in the US and UK, known for aggressively extorting their victims. Again, the chance of getting caught in cybercrime is very high. Let's just say that. The hackers' tactics and the way they target the big swaths of American industries, blah, blah, blah. All right, so Aflac got hacked. American Airlines had a technology issue yesterday that caused a widespread outage. With the system that handles flight bookings, check-in, ticket. All right. So this is the Caesars and MGM hack. Hackers stole social security numbers and driver's licenses from a significant number of loyalty program customers of Caesars Entertainment. Yikes. The disclosure comes, this was 2 years ago. So this was September 14th, 2023. And these are the same guys. Scattered Spider. They went from 9th grade to 11th grade. Caesars Entertainment. I mean, this was when they're back in ninth grade, and the last ones were in 11th grade. Caesars Entertainment, which owns famous hotel casinos, confirmed on September 7th that the hackers had stolen a copy of the customer loyalty program database. Dot, dot, dot. That's terrible. All right. Nothing really here new that we don't know about. All right. And then, yeah, that's it. So there are a lot of other hacks being done. Hackers backing Tehran have targeted U.S. banks, defense contractors, and oil industry companies following the strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, not cause widespread disruptions. So these teenagers are causing more destruction than some governments. But again, you know, vitamin K2. Thank you for joining. 50 minutes. It's pretty solid. Uh, yeah, we'll see you again soon.